Yehoshua chapter 8. Vayomer Yahweh el Yehoshua. And Yahweh said to Yehoshua, Halatirah wa halatehat. Qah imka et kol am hamil hama wa qum aleha. Don't thou fear, and thou shalt not be dismayed. Take with thee all the people of the war, and arise, go thou up to the high. Renatati biyadaka et melka high, we et ammo, we et ero, we et harasho. See, I have given into thy hand the king of the Ai, and his people, and his city, and his land. Wa'ashita la'ai ulamalakah katar ashita liariho ulamalakah. And thou shalt effectuate to the Ai and to her king, like what thou hast effectuated to Yerecho and to her king. Rakashalalah ubehematah tavozulachem. Only its spoil and its cattle thou shalt take as spoil for you. Shimelaka horebelair meacharaha. Set for thee an ambush to the city from behind it. Wayakom Yehoshua ukol am hamil hama la'alot ha'ai. And Yehoshua arose, and all the people of the war, to go up to the Ai. Wayibahar Yehoshua tholothim elepahish gibore ha'hail. Wayishlahem laila. And Yehoshua chose 30,000 men, strong men of the valor, or the efficacy, and he sent them by night. Wayathawahotam leamor, and he commanded them, saying, Rahu atem orbim la'ir me'achareha. See ye are ambushers to the city, from behind the city. Al tarhiqu minaha'ir mod. Thou shalt not make far from the city exceedingly. Wihiyitem kullechem nekonim, and ye shall be, all of you, ready ones. Wahani wikol ha'am atarahiti, and I and all the people which is with me, niqarab elaha'ir, shall approach to the city. Wahaya ki yeshu liqrahatenu katar barishona wanasnu lifnehem. And it shall be, as they come out to meet us, as when in the first, also we shall flee from before them. V'yashu acharenu ad hatiqenu hotam min ha'ir. And they shall come out after us until our dragging or drawing them away from the city. Ki yomeru nasim lefanenu katar barishona. For they shall say, they are fleeing before us like when in the first. وَنَصْنُ لِفْنِهِمْ, so we shall flee before them. وَهَتَّمْ تَقُومُوا مِهَا, and ye shall arise from the ambush. وَهُرَّثَتِمْ إِتْهَائِرْ, and ye shall dispossess the city. Unathanaha Yahweh Elohechem biyadechem, and Yahweh your God shall give it into your hands, into your hand. Wahaya ketofashichem et ha'ir, and it shall be as your seizing the city. Tathitu et ha'ir ba'esh, ye shall burn up the city in the fire. Kedavar Yahweh ta'ashu, like the word of Yahweh, ye shall effectuate. Rahu thiwiti hetachem, look ye, I have commanded you. Vayishalahem Yehoshua, and Yehoshua sent them. Vayelaku Elham Maharab, and they went to the ambush. Vayethabu ben Bethel wa ben Hai miyam alai, and they sat between Bethel and between the eye, from the west to the eye. Vayalan Yehoshua balayla hahu betoka ha'am, and Yehoshua lodged in that night in the midst of the people. Vayashikem Yehoshua babokar, and Yehoshua shouldered up in the morning. Vayifqod et ha'am, and he mustered the people. Vaya'alahu v'dhiqnei Yisrael lifnei ha'am ha'ai, and he went up, he and the elders of Yisrael, before the people to the eye. وَكُلْ هَعَامَ حَمِّلْ حَامَا أَتْرَهِتُّ عَالُوا وَيِّغَشُوا, and all the people of the war which was with him went up, and they drew near. وَيَابُوا نَجْدَ هَائِرْ, and they came opposite the city. وَيَحْنُوا مِثْتَفُونَ لَا'i, and they encamped from the north to the eye. وَهَغَّي بَيْنَيْهُ وَبَيْنَ هَائِرْ, and the valley was between him and between the eye. وَيِقَحْ كَحَمَّشَتْ أَلَافِي مَهِيشْ, and he took like 5,000 men. وَيَاشَمَهُ and he set them an ambush. بِنَ بِيتَهِلَ وَبِنَ هَائِي مِيَامَ لَائِرْ, between Beit El and between the eye, from the west to the city. وَيَاشِمُ هَعَامَ et kol ha'machane, and they set the people, all the camp. Atar mistzafon la'ir, which was from the north to the city. Ve'et aqevo miyam la'ir, and the hinder part from the west to the city. Vayelek Yehoshua balayla hahu betoka ha'emek, and Yehoshua went in that night in the midst of the valley. Vayahia kirhot melech ha'ai, And it was as the king of the eye saw. Wayamaharu also they hurried. Wayashakimu and they shouldered up. Wayeshahu anasheha ir liqarat Yisrael lamilhama hu wukol ammo lamoed. And they went out, the men of the city did, to meet Yisrael for the war, he and all his people for the appointment. Lipnei ha'araba, before the Araba, Wuhu lo yada, ki oreb lo me'achare ha'ir, and he had not known that an ambush was for him from behind the city. וינגעו יהושע וכל ישראל לפניהם, and Yehoshua and all Yisrael were smitten from before them. Wayanusu derek hamidbar, and they fled the way of the wilderness. ويزعقوا كلها عام أترباعي لردوف أخرهم, and all the people which was in Ai were called out to pursue after them. ويردفوا أخري يهوشع, and they pursued after Yehoshua. ويناتقوا من العير, and they were drawn away from the city. ולא נשאר איש בעי ובית-אל, and a man was not remaining in the Ai or in Beth-El. אתר לא הישהו אחרי ישראל, which went not out after Yisrael. ויעזבו את העיר בטוחה, and they forsook the city open. וירדפו אחרי ישראל, and they pursued after Yisrael. ויאמר יהוה אל יהושע, and Yahweh said to Yehoshua, נטה בכידון אתר בידך אל העי, כי בידך אתננה. Stretch thou by the javelin which is in thy hand to the eye, for into thy hand I give it. ויט יהושע בכידון אתר בידו אל העיר, and Yehoshua stretched by the javelin which was in his hand toward the city. והעורב קם מהרה ממקומו, וירושו כנתות ידו, and the ambush arose quickly from its place, and they ran as the stretching forth of his hand. ויבואו העיר וילכדוה, and they came to the city, and they took it. וימהרו, and they hurried. ויסיתו את העיר באש, and they kindled the city up in the fire. ויפנו אנשי העי אחריהם, and the men of the Ai turned after them or behind them. ויראו, and they saw, והנה עלה עשן העיר השמיימה, and behold, the smoke of the city went up to the skies. ולא היה בהם ידיים לנוס הנה והנה, and hands were not in them to flee here or here. Waha'am hanas hamidbar nehpak el harodef. And the people fleeing to the wilderness turned back to the pursuing ones. ויהושע וכל ישראל ראו כי לכד העורב את העיר וכי עלה עשן העיר. And Yehoshua and all Israel saw that the ambush captured the city and that the smoke of the city went up. Wayathuvu, and they turned back. Wayaku etahanashe ha'ai, and they struck the men of the Ai. Wehel yashahu min ha'ir, and these went out from the city liqrahatam, to meet them. Wayihyu Yisrael batawak, and they were for Yisrael in the midst. These from here and these from here. Wayakuhotam adabilati hishahir lo shari the wapalit, and they struck them until there not being remaining for him a survivor or an escapee. Where the Melech Tafashu Hai, and the king of the Ai they seized alive. Wayaqribu Hoto El Yehoshua, and they brought him to Yehoshua. Wayahir Kalot Yisrael Laharog Et Kol Yosave Hai Bashada, and it was as Yisrael was finishing to kill or slay all the inhabitants of the Ai in the field. Bamidbar athar radafum, in the wilderness where they pursued them in it. Wayapalu kulam lefi herb adatumam, also they fell, all of them, to the mouth of the sword, until their being finished. Wayathubu kol Yisrael ha'ai, and all Yisrael returned to the Ai. Wayakuotah lefi harab, and they struck it to the mouth of the sword. Wayahya kol hanophalim bayom hahu meish wa'adaitha thanim ashar halep kol hanashe ha'ai, and all the ones fallen were in that day from the men and the women 12,000, all the men of the Ai. Yehoshua lo heti b'yado atar nata bakidon ad atar heharim et kol yot beha'ai, and Yehoshua did not return his hand, which he stretched out by the javelin, until when he devoted all the inhabitants of the Ai. Raqahabhema ushalal ha'ir hahi bazazu lahem Yisrael kedavar Yahweh atrathilwa et Yehoshua. Only the cattle and the spoil of the city, of that city, Yisrael spoiled for themselves, according to the word of Yahweh which he commanded Yehoshua. Vayisharof Yehoshua et ha'ai, and Yehoshua burnt the Ai. Vayishimeha Tel olam shamama ad hayom hadha, and he set it an eternal mound, a heap of unseen time, a desolation unto this day. With the melech ha'ai tala al ha'esh ad et ha'gharb, and the king of the eye he hanged upon the wood until the time of the gharb. Ukabo hashemesh silwa Yehoshua ויורידו את נבלתו מן האש, וישליכו אותה אל פתח תגר העיר. ויקימו עליו גם הבנים גדול, עד היום הזה. And as the coming down of the sun, as the sun was coming down in the sky, Yehoshua commanded, and they brought down his corpse from the wood, and they threw it to the door of the gate of the city, and they caused to stand over him a heap of stones, a big heap of stones, unto this day. Ad hayom hadeh, unto this day. Az yivneh Yehoshua midbeh liYahweh Elohei Yisrael b'har Ebal. Then Yehoshua built an altar to Yahweh the God of Yisrael in the Mount Ebal. Katarthiwa Moshe Ebed Yahweh et bnei Yisrael kakatub b'sefer Torat Moshe midbah avanim shelemot atar lo henif alehem barzel. Like what Moshe, the servant of Yahweh, commanded the sons of Yisrael, like the thing written in the book of the law of Moshe, an altar of stones, complete stones, which iron he shall not wave over it. Vaya'alu alai olot leYahweh, vayedbehu shlamim. And they made ascending offerings go up upon it to Yahweh, and they sacrificed peace offerings. Vayiktobatam al havanim et mithne Torat Moshe atrakata b'lifnei b'nei Yisrael. And he wrote there upon the stones a second, or a copy that is, of the law of Moshe, which he wrote before the sons of Yisrael. V'kol Yisrael u'd'kenayu v'shotrim v'shofetayu v'omedim mideh u'mideh laharon neged hakohanim halewiyim nosheh Haron berit Yahweh kager ka'ezrah hethayo elamul har garizim v'hahethayo elamul har eval katarthuva Moshe ebed Yahweh levarek et ha'am Yisrael bar Yeshonah. And all Yisrael and its elders and officers and its judges, standing from here and from here to the ark, before the priests, the Leviyim, bearing the ark of the covenant of Yahweh, as the sojourner, as the native, its half to the front of Mount Gerizim and its half to the front of the Mount Ebal, like what Moshe, servant of Yahweh, commanded, to bless the people of Yisrael in the first. ואחרי כן קרא את כל דברי התורה, הברכה והקללה, ככל הכתוב בספר התורה. And after this he read or called out all the words of the law, the blessing and the curse, like all the thing written in the book of the law. לא היה דבר מכל אתר סיוע משה, אתר לא קרא יהושע נגד כל קהל ישראל, והנתים והטף והגר ההולך בקרבם. A word was not from all which Moshe commanded, which Yehoshua read not before all the congregation of Yisrael, or assembly of Yisrael, and the women, and the little ones, and the sojourner, the one going in their midst.